Ask you a question. What is the most important document in the United States of America? If you could name one document, let me know in the chat room. If you could name one document, what would it be? What is the most important document in the United States of America? If your answer is the U.S. Constitution, unfortunately, you're no longer correct. Sorry, you're no longer correct. The U.S. Constitution has now been pushed aside in favor of another document, the North Atlantic Treaty. That's right, the document that rules NATO, the governing body of the globalist expansion of war around the world. That's what the document supports. In a stunning move that got zero attention in the mainstream media, I didn't see any of the mainstream media covering this story at all. None of the major papers, the major news networks, nobody. So, stunning move that the United States Senate voted down an amendment, a simple amendment to the 2024 National Defense Authorization Act, the defense budget. Simple amendment. What was that amendment? Here's how Senator Rand Paul, who proposed the amendment, described it. Here's his tweet. Today, I offered an amendment to the Defense Authorization Act that would have clarified Article 5 of the NATO treaty does not supersede the Constitution, meaning the Constitution is more important than a NATO treaty. That's all it would do. It would just clarify to make sure that we all understand where the Constitution sits in this pecking order. Here it is from Senator Rand Paul. Here's the actual amendment itself, which is stunned to have given the U.S. sovereignty away to NATO. Here it is. It is the sense of Congress that the Article 5 of the North Atlantic Treaty does not supersede the constitutional requirement that Congress declare war before the United States engages in war. That's it. Very simple. Congress has the power, not NATO, to decide what happens to the United States when we're declaring war or not declaring war. Simple. In the middle of the floor debate, Senator Mike Lee stepped outside to post this message to social media because he couldn't believe what was happening. He was witnessing all of these people voting against this amendment. Members of the Senate voting against, and members of his own Republican Party voting against it. He voted for it. But here's what he had to say in the middle of this voting. Watch.
Okay, so something really weird and quite concerning just happened. We're debating the National Defense Authorization Act, a bill that goes through Congress every year where we talk about defense priorities. My friend and colleague, Senator Rand Paul from Kentucky, introduced an amendment number 222 to this act. And it's a simple amendment. It's just one sentence. It says, it is the sense of Congress that Article 5 of the NATO treaty does not supersede the constitutional requirement that the Congress declare war before the United States engages in war. Look, the Constitution requires this already, so it's a no-brainer. And most of my colleagues voted against it. Last I checked, there were 0 Democrats and only 16 Republicans who voted for it. So this really did surprise me because the Constitution makes very clear in Article 1, Section 8, that in order to declare war, you've got to have a declaration of war from Congress. The president can't do that on his own. And we certainly don't want a treaty deciding that for us and taking us to war. Now, the reason he references Article 5 of the NATO treaty is that that does contain an expectation that we'll defend the sovereignty of other nation states. But there's nothing in there that supersedes our constitutional responsibility to get Congress to authorize that. And there's not even anything in there that overtly requires us to go to war. We often assume that it may get to that, and in some cases it will. But I think it's very, very dangerous to have a situation where you could go to war solely by virtue of a treaty provision that itself doesn't require you to go to war, much less supersede our own Constitution. Something to think about, and disappointing, but I have a feeling we'll be having this discussion again.
So 16 people voted for it. You could Ted Cruz was one of them. Mike Lee was one of them. Of course, Rand Paul and a few others, but not many. not many at all. And it should, and as Rand Paul then tweeted, it should have been an easy vote to affirm the Constitution. To vote against affirming the Constitution actually places doubt in the Constitution, but it was defeated 83-16. He tweeted. This also comes on a day when we're literally a debate on. Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover.